You're welcome back to Daybreak West Africa here on 94.9 FM West Africa Democracy Radio, and opening up the second half was Baby Girl by Strongman and Kwame Eugene. It's still myself, Deborah Amuwo, here in studios with you, and in the second half of the program coming up, the special guests, the health tip, as well as the Daybreak challenge in the second half. We'll also be having, of course, more music. We'll still hear from Victoria Kimani and Kif No Beat in just a little bit. But before any of those, it's time for our arts and culture segment with Leah Alpern. Of course, I was talking about music earlier. Well, the Arts and Culture Spotlight for today will also be focused on some music. We meet Fantacee, better known as Fantacee Wiz, in her native Sierra Leone. She is the focus of the spotlight today, a traditional folk singer with a modern twist. She sings Sierra Leonean folk songs that glorify the past, but is, however, outspoken about how traditional values hurt women in her society. For Fantacee, music is a way to give all voices the right to be heard and kept alive. She recently broke out into spoken word and film in order to continue her activism, though she continues to revive and evolve the country's folk scene. And she spoke with WADR's Leah Alpern. She's our Arts and Culture Spotlight focus today.
In her music and public persona, Fantacee Wiz embraces her tradition, but she also departs from it. We talked about how culture can be both beautiful and harmful at the same time, and how her need to speak this complex truth inspires her art. Thanks so much for being with us today, Fantacee. So I noticed in your song, Nor Yellows Me.
Yeah, Nor Yellows Me.
Yeah, so you start out with this beautiful melody, and then you bring in this electronic beat, which sounds more modern and contemporary. Let's hear a clip of that transition now. And then just after that, you have the rapper Drizzlick come in.
I know the ass let you pass to me. Nah. I know say get for last to me. When you the pose like the selfie, I'm chilling with Bay. Watch, make you know say you don't pass to me.
So I was wondering if you could explain why you decided to bring together this folk melody with these modern beats as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, like when I started music, a lot of people were looking at me like, you're doing folk music. But then they said, you're so young. And I tell them that doing culture music or doing folk music or traditional music doesn't mean you have to be old. So I'm trying to let people know that I can do cultural music and traditional music and still incorporate contemporary music into it, and it will sound beautiful. So when I did Nor Yellows Me and I had to, feature a rapper into it, nobody thought it was possible until they get to hear that song. And they were like, okay, now it's all making sense. Yeah.
What was your goal with that song?
Well, the goal about that song is culture and tradition is not static. It evolves. But at the end of the day, again, the culture is there. It's the foundation. We could incorporate rap into our music, but that will make it less of Sierra Leonean music. But guess what? We'll have rap. Rap is contemporary. Who says rap is not traditional? We could do both.
I thought we could talk about what you appreciate the most about traditional culture and what you find beautiful about folk music in Sierra Leone.
What I find the most beautiful thing about folk music or traditional music, for me, it's a preservation of our culture and tradition, way of life, everything else that has to do with our history.
Is there a specific lyric or song that includes a message or an aspect of your history that you think it's really important for young people to know and to carry forward?
Like, there is a particular one that is our history.
Is there a specific lyric or song that includes a message or an aspect of your history that you think it's really important for young people to know and to carry forward?
Like, there is a particular one that I used to sing as a kid, and it says, wherever you go in this world, always remember where you come from. You know, as a kid, it didn't make that much sense to me. But, you know, growing up, and now that whenever I sing that song, I get to remember, like, okay, to me, it means that you don't get to forget yourself. You don't get to lost in the journey. You know, no matter how far you go, no matter how rough the journey gets, don't forget where you come from.
How does the melody of that song go?
It goes like,
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Now I want to kind of turn towards the ways that traditional culture has hurt you and hurt other women. So what I was really struck about your work is that you have so much respect for tradition, but you're also so direct about what you think needs to change.
Yeah, true. Because, you know, as someone who was born in the northern part of Sierra Leone, and someone who grew up there, and there are certain things that, as women, you're not allowed to speak. For example, if you have a fight or, you know, a misunderstanding with your husband, you know, the husband is always right. For me, that's a no. You know, at least you should allow the woman to say something, to speak up.
When did you first start to question all of that? When did it stop becoming normal?
It stopped becoming normal when, you know, for example, when my mom and dad would have a misunderstanding, and then my mom would go to her family house or father's house, and then they get to send her back, like, you have to go back to your husband. And then she would come and she would be crying. And I'm like, okay, they said you should go back, but nobody there to ask you what happened. Like, her tears doesn't matter in a way. I think there is something wrong with that. But it's that I started questioning that.
Why do you think young girls and women are encouraged to stay quiet? Like, why do you think that your mom was not asked how she felt?
It's about, okay, I think they call it respect. It's about, you know, a woman should be submissive to the man, and whatever your man says is final, for example. Whatever your man says, whether he's right or wrong, he's always right. You're not allowed to speak because you're a woman. A woman cannot be a leader.
I'm obviously playing devil's advocate here, but why do you think that's unfair? What's wrong with saying that women should be submissive to men?
It is wrong because I feel like every person has something to say, regardless if they don't make sense or they make sense or whatever. Everyone has something to say. And for the fact that you take that voice away from them, not then giving it up willingly, you're sort of violating their human rights. If you have a voice, there is a reason that you have that voice. You have to use it. But if someone will say you're not allowed to use that voice, that's a violation. There is something wrong with that, definitely.
I'm curious, when you started speaking out through your art, were you penalized or treated differently by your artist community and by the greater Sierra Leonean community afterwards?
Well, yeah, I would say yes. Because then I'm laughing because it's sort of like funny, and it's something that I get to say every day. People look at me like, you're never going to get married. You know, no man wants a woman that is mouthy, that talks too much, that they cannot control. I do have a spoken word that has to do with that, you know, talking about, you know, as African men, as Sierra Leonean men, nobody wants a woman that, you know, stand up tall and talk. you're so mouthy, you won't, you this, you that, you're not going to get, you're so disrespectful. I get that a lot on social media, off social media. But for me, as long as I know that, you know what, this voice that I'm using is the reason I was giving this voice, and I'm using it for what I was it was meant for. They want to talk, that's their problem, not mine.
So is that what your spoken word is a response to all of those people?
Yes.
Okay. So now to pull these two threads together, so you have this aspect of your art where you love your culture, you honor your culture, and you want it to continue.
Yeah.
But you also want it to continue on different terms, on terms that extend rights to everybody. Mm-hmm. So do you think that people in Sierra Leone understand that nuanced message? And if so, how do you communicate that as an artist?
Okay, recently I was on tour. And when I was coming, I was the only female among the guys. There was 3 or 4 guys that I'm on tour with, other artists. And we were talking. And then when we were talking, it was the same things. I was like, me as a woman, it's okay for me to say, you know what, marriage is not an achievement for me as a person. And also, it's okay for me to say, I want a child, but I don't want to have a child. It's my right. And then they said to me literally we don't understand you. 1 minute, you're so cultured, and the next minute, you're so polluted by the Western world. And that was offensive a little bit. So just because I was like, okay, I love my culture. I love it. But at the end of the day, I need to have my voice as a woman. I need to be able to speak up. And I was like, you don't get it. But guess what? You're going to get it someday. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. And let my art, my music, and everything speak for itself. But they'll get to understand it someday.
So for the people on tour with you, it was like either you're with your culture or you're throwing away those values for other values. And for you, your position is it's both and. I both love my culture and I think that it needs to change.
Yes. To me, it's that. When people think that there's no way you can be cultured and also ask for your voice not to be taken away from you. We can do both. They say only fools and gods don't change. And definitely, if you're not God, you're a fool.
Thank you so much, Fantacee. It's been wonderful getting to talk to you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome anytime.
Catch you back here next Thursday for the Arts and Culture Spotlight. Back to you, Deborah.